Good morning, folks. I'm David Burkett, the convener of SNP Peterhead. Now, my party are welcome for their pro-European stance, and it would be naive to think that our position was not related to why independence has been a sore fecht around these parts for a while. Now, folk often question us on the logic of working so hard to leave one union just to join another in, and rightly so. Because on the face of it, leaving one union to gain your independence just to join another in, initially, doesn't sound very sensible. It sounds about as sensible as getting a divorce and then getting remarried again the very next day. But leaving the UK and rejoining the European Union would in truth leave us with more control and more opportunity than we have now. Confused? Well, that is why I'm here, to explain this stuff point by point. Sovereignty. Yeah, that word again. The impression that the European Union took away the UK's sovereignty was very successfully cast and promoted as the reason for the UK to leave the EU. And there was some truth in that. Because different things are important to different people for different reasons, sovereignty is a very hard thing to quantify. But it is estimated that the UK ceded approximately 10% of control over decision making to the European Union during its time as a member. But in truth, the issue of the UK gaining back sovereignty from the European Union is actually a bit of a red herring. And it begins with that word, sovereignty. It's a word which conjures up emotional responses, likening this issue to patriotism and the monarchy, when in fact, if you look at it rationally and dispassionately, all it is control. All of us, at some time or another, will have made a deal, will have bought a car, will have bought a house, whatever. And the one thing that's always true in deal making is, in an equitable deal, no one gets everything that they want, but both sides get something acceptable. Every time a government goes out and does a deal with another, whether it's trade, security, military presence, border controls, every single deal will result in a loss of control on each side. Because that's what deal making is. Now, the European Union is an apex predator in terms of trade deals. They are a great white shark. Now, the United Kingdom has detached itself from the great white shark and is now swimming alone in the waters inhabited by that great white shark, only to realise now that there are a couple of tiger sharks in here too, in the shape of the USA and China. Also, there's a shoal of piranhas in the shape of the remaining 190 plus nations of the world. The lost control, or if you really must, lost sovereignty that the UK voted to take back is soon going to be gnawed away. Now, as the UK now swims alone instead of being part of the great white shark, they risk being eaten by it and eaten by the tiger sharks, and those piranhas will soon get to pick over the bones. Now, Scotland currently cedes about 60% of our control to Westminster. The 40% that we do have is under threat from Conservative manoeuvring currently going on. Now, on Independence Day, Scotland would initially gain back the 60% we ceded to Westminster, taking us back to our rightful 100%. And then, if we chose to rejoin the European Union, we'd then cede the same 10% that everybody else does. So, the end result would have us being in a position of having 90% control over our decision making, as opposed to the current 40% control over our decision making. And even the 10% that we ceded to the European Union would still be under our ultimate control, because the EU is a financial union. And though it is tough for members to join, they can leave any time they want to. Levelling up. Now, there were, and still are, things not to like about the European Union. Many of the larger, more prosperous nations felt that it benefited smaller and poorer nations more. Again, there was some truth in that. We all benefited from membership, But in ensuring a level playing field for trade, it is certainly true that the United Kingdom, Germany, France and other larger nations at times got less benefit than others. The best example of that is the rules on state aid. But independent Scotland wouldn't be a large nation in the European Union propping up others. It would be a small one, being assisted. The difference between being Scotland in the European Union and being the United Kingdom in the European Union would be the difference between night and day, especially as the European Union kind of wanted to make the UK leaving look like a bad move. And the nature of the union is often misunderstood. The UK is a political union, and though it was not entered by conquest and by the standards of 1707, it was a choice made freely, it wouldn't stand up to modern democracy. We're also constantly told that it's the most successful political union in the world, but I feel that really depends on which country in the union you live in. If you are a young person looking to start a career in, carbon capture and storage, if you lived in Humberside, you might think the union is successful, but if you lived in Peterhead, you wouldn't. The EU, as previously stated, is a financial union, and though it is tough to join, members can leave any time they want to. But only one nation state has ever chosen to leave the European Union, and the wisdom of that decision, or lack thereof, is playing out before our very eyes every single day. So does independent Scotland need any of the unions at all? Why rejoin the EU at all? Why not just stay fully independent and keep 100% of our decision making? Well, as I see it, there are three main reasons that 10% is a price worth paying. Rejoining the EU would re-establish frictionless trade with the largest trading bloc in the world, and it would give us access to all their trade deals, which are the best ones. Rejoining would also re-establish EU internal migration, which was of benefit to Scotland, and as the rest of the UK are learning, actually benefited them too. But the most important reason to rejoin takes a wee bit of explaining. It would be of no benefit for our UK to make Anglo-Scots border control difficult, as they're going to need the oil, gas, water, hydroelectricity, etc. that they currently get for free. Now, while the border may not be as free as it is now, it would be in the best interest of both nations to make it as free as possible. Both nations would need a pretty open agreement with each other. So Scotland could find itself in the unique position of being in the European Union and having a convenient border with mainland RUK. Which then means that we become very attractive for direct investment to any company from the European Union or even farther afield looking for as free a trade as possible with the remainder of the United Kingdom. But if we copied the remainder of the United Kingdom and swam alone, instead of being part of the great white shark, we would risk being eaten by it. And the tiger sharks and the piranhas would get to pick over our bones too. So in summary, we have the potential of a stunningly bright future. A unique place in Europe with an RUK mainland border is inviting us. We just have to reach out and grab it. I opened this video with an analogy of leaving an unhappy marriage, only to get married the very next day. But that's how other people see it, and how it has been successfully cast by those who are anti-independence and anti-Europe. Reduced to an individual level, it would be more like me getting a divorce, reflecting for a wee while, then starting to date, maybe even getting myself a girlfriend. But all the while, keeping my future options very much open. Folks, thanks for listening. Likes are good, but shares spread the message.